Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Legal Tings. Today we're talking about what a letter of representation is and how do you use it in a criminal case. So, what exactly is a letter of representation? If you're being investigated or charged with committing a criminal offense in Singapore, you're probably thinking of how to get yourself out of trouble. And one of the ways to do this is to send a letter of representation to the Office of the Public Prosecutor, which is also called the Attorney General's Chambers or simply AGC. Just so you know, the Attorney General is a government-appointed official who holds the position as the Public Prosecutor of Singapore and makes the final decision on whether to take action against a person for committing a criminal offence and what type of action to take. And he and his team of lawyers are the overall advisors to the government on all legal matters. A letter of representation is basically, and quite simply, a letter of appeal and explanation that tries to ask and persuade AGC to give you a chance and to take a less serious type of action against you, or perhaps not to take any action against you at all. And it does this by giving and highlighting the reasons and evidence in support of your request that are relevant and necessary to convince AGC. And you can send a letter of representation at any stage of your case. You could send it during the period when you're only being investigated and not charged in court yet, or you could even send it later on when you've already been charged in court but haven't yet been sentenced to punishment by the court. What does a letter of representation contain? The main things that it should contain are the request that you're making to AGC, meaning what exactly you're asking them to give you or agree to, and the reasons, information, and evidence in support of your request that would help to convince them. Because the aim of the letter of representation is to help you get out of trouble, or at least reduce the amount of trouble that you might get into, you'll typically be trying to explain and clarify how you're not involved or guilty of committing a criminal offense, or that you're not as involved or as guilty as some others are. And you'll be describing and showing the evidence that you feel best supports your argument and point of view. As you're asking AGC to take a less serious view of your case, you could also suggest some alternative and less serious types of action that they can consider to take against you instead. For example, you could ask them to give you a warning or withdraw or drop your charges, or you could ask them to agree to only request for a lighter type or lower range of punishment. If necessary, the letter can also sometimes include your suggestion and offer to make an apology to the victim of a crime or to compensate the victim for any financial losses that took place as a result of the offence. After you sent the letter, AGC can then either agree to all of your requests, which is the best outcome, or they could also reject your requests. Or they could alternatively propose another counter offer for you to consider. For example, instead of saying yes to everything that you've asked for, they could only agree to some of the things that you've asked for. Or instead of agreeing to accept the proposal that you've made, they could themselves also make adjustments to the proposal, such as by including additional conditions and terms. Preparing and submitting a letter of representation is not only about saying that you're sorry and asking AGC to take a more lenient type of action against you. Although it's always helpful to stress how remorseful you are for being involved in the case or causing injury, hurt, or loss to others, and that you promise not to get involved in another incident in the future, it's equally important to say and show why you shouldn't be held partially or even fully accountable for the offence taking place. And you can do this by giving the reasons and evidence that you say would and should reduce the seriousness of your actions and behaviour. One final thing to remember is this: you don't only or always need to have a lawyer help you write and send a letter of representation, because it's something that you can and are allowed to do on your own too. If you feel that you can communicate your request and reasons in a simple and clear way, then you can definitely try sending the letter yourself. Having said that, getting a criminal lawyer to advise and assist you in preparing the letter can also be helpful, because he can tell you whether your reasons and explanations are actually valid and strong, or whether they are not even acceptable from a legal perspective. And then he can put together the letter of representation and appeal that best captures and represents your strongest points, arguments, and evidence. So, Now you know. If you've enjoyed listening to this and would like to hear more, subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts and follow me on TikTok and Instagram. And remember, it's not rocket science, it's just legal things.